I was standing in the changing room of a boutique downtown, trying on a dress for my daughter's graduation ceremony, when I heard my husband's voice just outside the curtain. He was on the phone and his tone was hushed, almost secretive. I froze mid-zip when I heard him whisper, "She still doesn't know, the loan's approved." My heart stopped. The fabric of the dress suddenly felt suffocating against my skin. I pressed my hand against the wall to steady myself. My breath caught somewhere between my chest and throat. What loan? I listened harder, my pulse hammering in my ears. "Yeah, everything's in place," he continued, his voice dropping even lower. "Just keep it quiet until after graduation. I don't want her asking questions yet." The world tilted. I stood there in that cramped changing room, half-dressed, staring at my reflection in the mirror. A woman I suddenly didn't recognize. 23 years of marriage, and I was overhearing my husband plotting something behind my back like I was a stranger in my own life. Before I tell you what happened next, and trust me, you won't believe where this story goes. Stay with me till the end. Because what I discovered about the man I trusted with everything, and what I did about it, changed my life forever. My name is Catherine. I'm 51 years old, and until that moment in the changing room, I thought I knew exactly who I was. I was a wife, a mother, partner. I had built my entire adult life around those roles, and I wore them proudly. I met my husband, Richard, when I was 26. He was 30, ambitious, charming in that quiet, confident way that made you feel like you were the only person in the room. We met at a charity fundraiser where I was volunteering. He approached me during the silent auction, asked me about the painting I was admiring, and somehow we talked for 2 hours straight. He was an architect then, just starting his own firm. He had dreams, big ones, and when he talked about them, his eyes lit up in a way that made me believe in them too. We married within a year. It felt right, like pieces of a puzzle clicking into place. I was working as a high school English teacher at the time, a job I loved with my whole heart. There was something sacred about helping teenagers find their voices through literature, watching them discover that books could be mirrors and windows all at once. When our daughter Emma was born 2 years into our marriage, my world expanded in ways I never imagined possible. She was perfect, 10 tiny fingers, 10 tiny toes, and lungs that could wake the entire neighborhood. Richard was a good father in those early years. He changed diapers, did midnight feedings, walked the floors with her when she was colicky. We were a team. But as his architecture firm grew, so did his hours away from home. First, I understood. Building a business takes sacrifice. I took on more at home, adjusted my teaching schedule, made sure everything ran smoothly so he could focus. When Emma started school, I was the one who did homework with her, attended parent-teacher conferences, organized birthday parties. Richard came when he could, but his absences became more frequent. "I'm doing this for us," he'd say, kissing my forehead before leaving for another late meeting. "So Emma can have everything she needs. So we can be secure." And I believed him. I supported him. When he said he needed to invest more money back into the firm, I didn't question it. When he said we should hold off on that vacation we'd planned because cash flow was tight, I suggested we have a staycation instead and made it fun for Emma. When he said he couldn't make Emma's dance recital because he had a critical client meeting, I recorded it on my phone and showed him later, watching his face as he smiled at our daughter's pirouettes. I became an expert at filling in the gaps. I was both parents at once, the one who enforced bedtime and the one who granted extra stories. The one who said no to too much candy, and the one who surprised Emma with ice cream after a hard day. I stretched myself across the empty spaces Richard left behind, and I told myself it was temporary. That once the firm was established, once things settled down, we'd have our time. My teaching salary covered most of our household expenses. It wasn't much, teachers never make what they're worth, but it was steady. Richard's income from the firm was less predictable, especially in the early years. There were good months and lean months. He handled all our finances. He said it was easier that way, more efficient, and I was already juggling so much with Emma and my teaching that I agreed. I trusted him. That's what marriage is, isn't it? Trust. Partnership. Believing that you're both rowing in the same direction, even when you can't always see each other's oars. When Emma was in middle school, my mother got sick. Cancer, aggressive, merciless. She lived 3 hours away, and suddenly I was driving back and forth every weekend, sometimes more. Richard couldn't come often. The firm was in a crucial growth phase, he explained. So I sat by my mother's bedside alone, held her hand through chemo, cleaned her house, made sure she ate. I used my sick days. I used my personal days. When those ran out, I took unpaid leave. My principal was understanding, but there were limits. I stretched myself thinner and thinner. A rubber band pulled to its breaking point. My mother died on a Tuesday in October. Emma was 13. Richard made it to the funeral but had to leave early for a meeting with investors. I stood at my mother's grave with my daughter's hand in mine, watching the only parent I had left disappear into the earth, and I felt something crack inside me. But I didn't have time to fall apart. Emma needed me. My students needed me. Life didn't pause for grief. The inheritance from my mother was modest, about $80,000. It felt wrong to think of it as money rather than a life, but it was also a relief. A cushion. Security. Richard suggested we put it in a high-yield savings account under both our names, for Emma's future, for emergencies. I agreed. Over the next few years, life found a rhythm again. Emma thrived in high school, honor roll, captain of the debate team, accepted to 3 colleges with scholarship offers. I was so proud I could burst. All those years of helping with homework, of believing in her, of being present, they had mattered. Richard's firm was doing well too, or so he said. He'd expanded, hired more staff, taken on bigger projects. We still weren't wealthy, but we were comfortable. We had a nice house in a good neighborhood, reliable cars, enough for Emma's college expenses after scholarships. But there were things I noticed, small things that didn't quite add up. Credit card statements that Richard quickly shuffled away when I walked into his office. Phone calls he took in another room. Weekends he spent at the office that seemed excessive even for someone ambitious. I told myself I was being paranoid. Marriage requires trust, and Richard had given me no concrete reason to doubt him. Yes, we'd grown distant, more roommates than lovers, but that was normal after 20+ years, wasn't it? Life gets busy. Romance fades into partnership. That's what everyone says. Emma's graduation was 3 weeks away. She was valedictorian, giving the commencement speech. I was bursting with pride, planning a celebration dinner, thinking about how to capture every moment of her big day. I needed a new dress, something special. My teaching wardrobe was practical, not ceremonial. That's why I was in that boutique, in that changing room, when my entire world cracked open. I don't know how long I stood frozen in that changing room after hearing Richard's words. Could have been seconds or minutes. Time did that strange thing where it both speeds up and slows down simultaneously. She still doesn't know, the loans approved. My hands were shaking as I unzipped the dress and put my own clothes back on. I didn't look at myself in the mirror again. I couldn't. The woman staring back at me felt like a stranger wearing my face. I stepped out of the changing room carefully, quietly. Richard was standing near the store's entrance, his back to me, phone still pressed to his ear. I watched him from behind a rack of blouses, my heart hammering so hard I thought he might hear it. The property's perfect, he was saying. Beachfront just like we wanted. Closings in 6 weeks. A pause. No, she won't find out. I've kept everything separate. The account's in my name only. Another pause, then a low chuckle. Trust me, by the time she figures it out, it'll be too late to do anything about it. My stomach lurched. I pressed my hand against my mouth to keep from making a sound. I'll talk to you tonight, Richard said, his voice returning to normal volume. After Catherine goes to bed. She usually crashes around 10. He hung up and turned around, nearly bumping into me. Oh, honey, there you are. His face was open, smiling, completely relaxed. Did you find something? We should get going. I have a conference call at 4. I stared at him. This man I'd slept beside for 23 years. This man whose child I'd carried and raised. This man who'd held my hand at my mother's funeral. No, I heard myself say. Nothing fit right. That's too bad. Well, there's still time to find something before graduation. He checked his watch. Ready? I nodded, not trusting my voice. We walked to the car in silence. He hummed along to the radio on the drive home. Talked about a project his firm was working on. Mentioned that he might need to take a business trip next week. I made appropriate sounds, but inside I was screaming. When we got home, I told him I had a headache and went upstairs. I locked myself in our bathroom and sat on the edge of the tub, trying to breathe, trying to think. Alone. Property. Beachfront. An account in his name only. I pulled out my phone and opened our banking app. We had a joint checking account where my teaching salary was deposited and where we paid household bills. The balance looked normal. I checked our joint savings, the one where we'd supposedly put my mother's inheritance. The balance showed $53,000. Wait, we'd put $80,000 in there 6 years ago. It should have grown with interest, not decreased. My hands were trembling so badly I could barely type. I logged into my email and searched for bank statements. I found them going back years, downloaded them one by one, started tracing through the transactions. There. Monthly transfers out. $2,000 here, $3,000 there. Sometimes $5,000 at once. All of them labeled investment account, or mutual fund, or Emma's college fund. Transfers I'd never authorized, never even seen. Over 6 years, $47,000 had been moved out of our joint savings. Money that was partially mine. Money that came from my mother's death. I felt bile rise in my throat. That night, I pretended everything was normal. I made dinner, chicken piccata, Richard's favorite. I asked Emma about her finals. I smiled when Richard complimented the meal. And after Emma went upstairs to study and Richard settled into his office for his conference call, I sat in our bedroom and cried silently into a pillow. At 10:15 p.m., I heard him leave the house through the garage. He thought I was asleep. I waited 5 minutes, then went to his office. His desk was neat, organized, locked drawers on both sides. But Richard was a creature of habit. I knew he kept an extra key in his golf bag in the garage. I retrieved it, my heart pounding so hard I thought I might pass out. The first drawer contained regular files, tax returns, insurance policies, client contracts. The second drawer was different. Inside was a file folder labeled Clearwater Property. My hand shook as I opened it. Property listings, escrow documents, loan applications, all in Richard's name only. A beachfront condo in Florida. Not a vacation home but a primary residence. 2 bedrooms, 2 baths, waterfront view. Purchase price, $375,000. There were printouts of mortgage pre-approval letters. The down payment was listed as $75,000. I traced back through the documents. The down payment was coming from an account I'd never heard of. RJC Investments. Richard's initials. I kept digging. Bank statements from this mystery account showed regular deposits over the past 6 years. The exact amounts and dates that matched the transfers out of our joint savings. He'd been systematically moving money out of our shared accounts into one I didn't know existed. But that wasn't all. Under the property documents was another folder. This one had a woman's name on it. Melissa Thornton. My blood turned to ice. Inside were photos. Richard and a woman I didn't recognize, blonde, mid-30s, pretty in that carefully maintained way. They were at restaurants on hiking trails at what looked like a resort. In one photo, his arm was around her waist. In another, they were kissing. There were printed emails. Conversations spanning 3 years. My vision blurred as I read through them. Can't wait until we don't have to hide anymore, babe. The house is perfect. You're going to love waking up to the ocean every morning. Just a little while longer. Once Emma graduates, I'll tell Catherine. Then we can finally start our life together. I couldn't breathe. The room was spinning. I gripped the edge of the desk to keep from falling. Our life together. I forced myself to keep reading. There were more emails detailing his plans. He'd been planning this for years, waiting until Emma graduated, until she was settled in college. Then he was going to ask for a divorce, move to Florida with Melissa, start over. The loan he mentioned on the phone wasn't just for the property. There were documents for a home equity line of credit on our house. Our house, the one I'd lived in for 18 years. $150,000 approved, ready to close. He was using our home as collateral to finance his new life with another woman. And according to these documents, he'd forged my signature on the application. I sat in his office chair, surrounded by the evidence of my husband's betrayal, and something inside me broke. Not in a shattering way, but more like ice cracking. A clean, sharp fracture that revealed something hard underneath. For years I'd made excuses. I'd filled the gaps. I'd trusted and supported and sacrificed. And all that time he'd been planning his escape, stealing from me, lying to my face every single day. The headlights of his car swept across the office window as he pulled back into the drivage. I had maybe 90 seconds before he came inside. I quickly took photos of everything with my phone, every document, every email, every bank statement. My hands were steadier now, moved by something beyond shock or hurt. I was in documentation mode, the same focused state I entered when grading papers or preparing lesson plans. I put everything back exactly as I'd found it, locked the drawer, returned the key to the golf bag. By the time Richard came through the door, I was in our bedroom, under the covers, eyes closed, breathing steady. He came upstairs 20 minutes later. I felt him slip into bed beside me, felt him settle on his side of the mattress. The mattress we'd shared for over 2 decades. The mattress where we'd conceived our daughter. The mattress that now felt like an ocean between us. He fell asleep quickly. I could tell by his breathing deep, even completely untroubled. The sleep of someone who believed his secrets were safe. I lay awake until dawn, staring at the ceiling, my mind working through everything I'd learned. Every emotion cycled through me. Rage, devastation, humiliation, grief. But underneath it all, something new was forming. Clarity. The next morning I called in sick to school. Emma had an early class, and Richard left for the office by 8. The moment his car disappeared down the street, I got to work. I called our bank first. I need to speak to someone about recent transactions on my account, I said, keeping my voice steady. They confirmed what I'd already discovered. The transfers out of our joint savings had my signature on the authorization forms, except they weren't my signature. They were close but not quite right. The C in Catherine was too rounded. The tail on the Y was wrong. I didn't authorize these transfers, I told the representative. And that's not my signature. There was a pause. Ma'am, are you saying you believe there's been fraud on your account? Yes, I said firmly. That's exactly what I'm saying. They opened an investigation immediately. They couldn't reverse the transactions yet, that would take time. But they could flag the account, prevent further unauthorized transfers. Next I called a lawyer. Not our family lawyer. Richard's golf buddy who'd handled our wills and Emma's college trust. I found a divorce attorney in the next town over. A woman named Patricia Nguyen whose website promised aggressive representation for complex asset division. Her receptionist could fit me in that afternoon. I spent the rest of the morning gathering everything I'd need. I made copies of our tax returns going back 7 years. I compiled statements from every account I could access. I uploaded all the photos I'd taken from Richard's office to a secure cloud account. And then I did something I hadn't done in years. I looked at myself in the mirror, really looked. I saw a woman who'd been strong enough to raise a child largely alone while working full-time. A woman who'd cared for her dying mother with grace. A woman who'd given and given and given, not out of weakness but out of love. I thought that love meant sacrifice without question. I thought partnership meant trust without verification. I thought marriage meant absorbing betrayal and calling it compromise. I'd been wrong. Looking back now, I wonder how I didn't see it sooner. But that's the thing about betrayal. It only becomes obvious in hindsight. When you're living in it, when you trust someone completely, the signs just look like life. If you've ever been in my position, if you've ever discovered that the person you trusted most was lying to your face, tell me in the comments what you did. I really want to know. because what I was about to do terrified me. But staying silent, pretending I didn't know, living with a man who was counting down the days until he could leave me, that terrified me more. Patricia Nguyen's office was in a modern building downtown, all glass and chrome. Her receptionist offered me coffee and led me to a conference room with a view of the city. I sat there, hands folded on the table, and waited. Patricia was in her 40s, impeccably dressed, with eyes that were both kind and sharp. She shook my hand firmly and sat across from me. "Tell me everything," she said. So I did. I told her about the conversation I'd overheard, about the documents I'd found, about 23 years of marriage and what I'd just discovered it had really been. I showed her the photos on my phone, all the evidence I'd compiled. My voice stayed steady the whole time, like I was recounting someone else's story, not my own. Patricia took notes, asked questions, examined every photo carefully. When I finished, she sat back and looked at me with something that might have been admiration. "Mrs. Harrison," she said, "your husband has committed several serious legal violations here. The forged signatures constitute fraud. The unauthorized transfer of joint assets, especially those that came from your inheritance, is financial abuse. And if he's used your home as collateral without your knowledge or consent, that's potentially criminal. Can we stop it?" I asked. "The house loan, can we prevent that from going through?" "Absolutely. We'll file an emergency motion first thing tomorrow morning." She made another note. "But we need to think strategically about timing. How long until your daughter graduates?" 3 weeks. Patricia nodded slowly. "And your husband is planning to wait until after graduation to tell you about the divorce and his plans?" "According to the emails, yes." "Then here's what I recommend." She leaned forward. "We don't show our hand yet. We gather more evidence, we build an airtight case, and we let him think everything's going according to his plan. Then on our timeline, not his, we act." "You mean I should keep pretending?" The thought made my stomach turn. "I mean you should protect yourself and your daughter. If you confront him now, he might try to hide assets, destroy evidence, manipulate the situation. But if we're strategic, we can ensure you get exactly what you're entitled to in the divorce settlement. More importantly, we can expose his fraud and make sure he faces consequences." I thought about Emma. Her graduation was 3 weeks away, the culmination of her hard work, her moment to shine. If I confronted Richard now, if this all exploded before her big day, it would devastate her. She'd have to give her valedictorian speech with her family shattered. But 3 weeks of living with a man I now knew had betrayed me in every possible way? 3 weeks of sharing meals and conversations and a bed with someone actively plotting his exit from my life? "I don't know if I can do it," I whispered. Patricia reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "Catherine, I've been doing this for 17 years. I've seen women in situations much worse than yours. And you know what? The ones who plan carefully, who think strategically, who don't let emotion override logic, those are the ones who come out ahead. Not just financially but emotionally. They take back their power." I looked at this woman I'd just met, who was offering me something I'd lost without realizing it. Agency. "Tell me what to do," I said. Over the next 2 hours, Patricia laid out a plan. We would document everything, not just the evidence I already had, but Richard's daily movements, his phone records if we could legally obtain them, any additional financial transactions. We'd work with a forensic accountant to trace every dollar he'd moved. We'd file the emergency motion to prevent the home equity loan from closing, but we'd do it quietly, in a way that wouldn't alert Richard immediately. And I would continue to be the wife he expected me to be. For 3 more weeks. "One more thing," Patricia said as I was leaving. "Open your own bank account at a different bank. Start documenting all your expenses. And consider whether you want to tell your daughter before we file, or after." Emma. God, Emma. How do you tell your child that her father is a liar and a cheat? That the stable family she grew up in was a performance on his part? "After graduation," I said. "She deserves that day without this hanging over her." Patricia nodded. "You're a good mother, Catherine." I left her office and sat in my car for 15 minutes before I could drive. My phone buzzed, a text from Richard. Meeting running late. Can you grab dinner? Love you. Love you. 2 words he'd said 10,000 times. 2 words that had meant something once. 2 words that now felt like knives. I texted back. Sure. See you tonight. That evening I made spaghetti carbonara, another one of his favorites. I set the table with cloth napkins. I asked him about his day. I smiled when he complained about a difficult client. And inside I was counting down. 3 weeks. 21 days. I could do this. The next morning, while Richard was in the shower, I went to a different bank across town and opened a new checking account in my name only. I set up direct deposit for my teaching salary, effective with my next paycheck. It felt like a small act of rebellion but also like planting a flag. This is mine. Patricia had given me homework. I started keeping a detailed journal documenting everything. What time Richard came and went, any phone calls he took in private, any unusual behavior. I felt like a spy in my own home, but the act of recording it all gave me something to focus on besides the constant ache in my chest. I also started paying closer attention to our joint accounts. Richard hadn't noticed yet that the bank had flagged our savings account for investigation. Transactions were being monitored now. He tried to transfer another $2,000 3 days after my meeting with Patricia, and it was blocked. I watched him check his phone repeatedly that evening, frowning at the screen. Something wrong? I asked innocently. Bank apps being weird, he muttered. Probably just a glitch. It wasn't a glitch. It was justice starting to tighten its grip. Patricia worked fast. Within a week, she'd filed the emergency motion regarding the home equity loan. The judge granted a temporary restraining order, freezing the loan application. Richard wouldn't know until he tried to move forward with closing, which according to his documents wasn't scheduled for another month. Meanwhile, the forensic accountant Patricia recommended, a man named Harold Chun, started tracing the money trail. What he found was even worse than I'd thought. Over 6 years, Richard had siphoned off a total of $62,000 from our joint accounts. Some from savings, some from my mother's inheritance, some from bonuses I'd received from the school district for curriculum development work. Money I'd earned. Money that was mine. He'd also been underreporting his income from the architecture firm. According to the tax returns we filed jointly, his annual income had been around $90,000. According to Harold's investigation, which involved subpoenaing business records through Patricia, his actual income was closer to $160,000. He's been hiding money from you for years, Harold explained during a conference call with Patricia and me. He's got several accounts you don't know about. The RJC Investments account is just one. There's also an offshore account in the Cayman Islands, probably set up to hide assets before the divorce. I felt dizzy. How much? In the offshore account? About $200,000. $200,000. While I'd been using my sick days and personal days to care for my dying mother, while I'd been stretching my teacher's salary to cover household expenses because he said cash flow was tight, Richard had been stashing away $200,000. Can we get it back? I asked. Patricia smiled grimly. Oh, we're going to get it back. And a lot more. The next part of the plan was harder. Patricia advised me to start gathering character witnesses, people who could testify to my contributions to the marriage, my role as Emma's primary parent, my financial sacrifices. I reached out to close friends, to Emma's teachers over the years, to my principal. Having those conversations meant admitting what was happening. It meant saying out loud, my husband has been lying to me and stealing from me and planning to leave me for another woman. The first person I told was my best friend, Janice. We'd taught together for 15 years, had lunch together most days, had shared everything from lesson plans to life crises. We met for coffee on a Saturday morning, and I told her everything. She cried. Not the polite dabbing tears. Full sobbing, mascara running, the works. I'm so sorry, she kept saying. Catherine, I'm so sorry. What can I do? Tell me what you need. What I needed was to not feel so alone. What I needed was to know that I wasn't crazy. That Richard's betrayal was real, and not something I'd imagined or deserved. Just be on my side, I said. When this all comes out, when people start taking sides, just be on mine. She grabbed my hands across the table. Always. Forever. No question. One by one, I told the people who mattered. My sister, who lived in Oregon and immediately offered to fly out. Emma's favorite teacher from middle school, who offered to write a letter about my involvement in Emma's education. My neighbor, who'd watched me carry the weight of our household for years. Each conversation was hard. Each one meant admitting that my marriage, the thing I'd built my adult life around, had been a lie. But each one also reminded me that I was loved, that I mattered, that I wasn't alone. 2 weeks before Emma's graduation, Patricia received the forensic accounting report. It was devastating and empowering. The report documented everything. The hidden income, the offshore accounts, the systematic theft of marital assets, the forged signatures. Harold had even traced Richard's financial support of Melissa. He'd been paying her rent for 2 years, buying her gifts, funding vacations. All with money that should have been supporting our family. This is one of the most clear-cut cases of financial infidelity I've seen, Patricia said. When we file for divorce, we're going to have so much evidence that his lawyer won't know what hit him. When do we file? I asked. I recommend the day after Emma's graduation. Let her have her moment. Then we move. I agreed. 1 more week. 7 more days of pretending. I could do it. But Richard was getting suspicious. I could tell. I'd been distant, distracted. He'd asked a few times if everything was okay, if I was feeling well. I blamed stress about the end of the school year, about Emma leaving for college, about menopause. Anything that would satisfy him without revealing the truth. 3 days before graduation, he tried to transfer money again. This time it was a larger amount, $10,000, from our joint checking into his secret account. The transfer was blocked immediately, and the bank called me to confirm. That evening, Richard came home agitated. Catherine, did you do something with our bank account? My heart raced, but I kept my voice calm. What do you mean? Transfers aren't going through. The bank said there's some kind of hold on the account. I frowned like I was confused. That's weird. Did you call them? I tried. They said they couldn't discuss it over the phone, that I need to come in person with identification. He ran his hand through his hair. This is ridiculous. I have bills to pay. Bills? Right. Like the rent for his girlfriend's apartment. Maybe it's a security thing? I suggested. Identity theft is so common now. The bank might just be being cautious. He studied me for a moment, and I wondered if he could see through the performance. But then he nodded. Yeah, probably. I'll go in tomorrow. He didn't go in the next day. He was too busy. And by the time he finally made it to the bank, it would be too late. The night before Emma's graduation, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed next to Richard, listening to him snore, thinking about everything that was about to change. Tomorrow, Emma would give her valedictorian speech. Tomorrow, she'd graduate with honors, head off to college in the fall, start her adult life. And the day after tomorrow, I'd file for divorce. I'd present Richard with evidence of his betrayal. I'd watch the life he'd so carefully constructed crumble around him. I felt powerful and terrified all at once. At some point near dawn, I must have dozed off, because I woke to sunlight streaming through the window and Richard already up, whistling in the bathroom. Like it was any other day. Like he wasn't counting down his own timeline for destroying our family. Big day, he said when he saw me awake. He was putting on his watch, the expensive one I'd bought him for his 50th birthday. Our little girl's graduating. Our little girl. The one he was planning to leave. The one he decided would be acceptable collateral damage in his pursuit of a new life. Yeah, I said. Big day. Emma's graduation was beautiful. She looked stunning in her cap and gown, her face glowing with pride and excitement. When she walked across the stage to give her valedictorian speech, I felt my heart might burst. She spoke about resilience, about the challenges her generation had faced, about building futures despite uncertainty. She was articulate and poised, and I knew with absolute certainty that I'd done a good job raising her. Whatever Richard had or hadn't contributed, I had been there. I had shaped this remarkable young woman. Richard sat beside me, filming on his phone, occasionally squeezing my hand, playing the part of the proud father, the devoted husband. I let him. One more performance before the curtain fell. After the ceremony, we took photos. Emma with her diploma, Emma with her friends, our family of 3 posed together, smiling. I looked at that photo later, at the 3 of us frozen in what looked like happiness, and marveled at how much can hide behind a smile. We went to dinner at Emma's favorite restaurant, a fancy Italian place downtown. Richard ordered an expensive bottle of wine, toasted our daughter's achievements. Emma glowed under the attention, talked about her plans for college, her excitement about the future. To Emma, Richard said, raising his glass. And to family. To family. Coming from a man who'd been planning to abandon us. I raised my glass and drank, and the wine tasted like ashes. That night, after Emma went to bed, Richard suggested we open another bottle of wine, celebrate just the 2 of us. I agreed. We sat on our back patio under the stars, and he talked about how fast time had gone, how grown-up Emma was, how proud he was. We did good, didn't we? He said, reaching for my hand. I let him take it. I looked at our fingers intertwined, 23 years of history in that gesture, and felt nothing but cold clarity. We did, I said. Then, because I couldn't help myself, what comes next? He seemed surprised by the question. What do you mean? Emma's leaving for college in August. The house will be quiet. What comes next for us? There was a pause. A brief flicker of something across his face. Guilt? Calculation? Then he smiled. I don't know. Maybe we finally take that trip to Europe we've always talked about. Maybe I cut back on work a little, we spend more time together. He squeezed my hand. Maybe this is our time now. Every word was a lie. In his mind, he was less than 6 weeks away from being in Florida with Melissa, starting his new life. And here he sat, spinning fairy tales about our future together. I pulled my hand away, stood up. I'm tired. Long day. Yeah, me too. He stood, moved to kiss me. I turned my head so his lips caught my cheek instead of my mouth. If he noticed, he didn't say anything. I went upstairs and locked myself in the bathroom. I looked at myself in the mirror, really looked. The woman staring back at me wasn't the same one from the changing room 3 weeks ago. That woman had been shocked, devastated, broken. This woman was ready for war. The next morning I woke up before dawn. Richard was still sleeping, sprawled on his back, completely at peace. I got dressed quietly, grabbed my purse, and left the house while it was still dark. Patricia's office opened at 8. I was there at 7:45, sitting in my car in the parking lot, watching the sun rise over the city. My phone buzzed, a text from Emma. Morning, Mom. Thanks for yesterday. Best day ever. Love you, Red Heart. I typed back. Love you too, sweetheart. So proud of you. Then I turned off my phone. What was about to happen, Emma didn't need to see. Not yet. Patricia arrived at 7:55, carrying a coffee and her briefcase. She saw me waiting and nodded. You ready? Yes. We went inside. Her assistant arrived shortly after, and together we finalized everything. The divorce petition was complete, all 57 pages of it, detailing every asset, every account, every betrayal. The emergency motions were ready to file. The evidence was compiled into binders, organized by category. Financial fraud, hidden assets, infidelity, forgery. At 9 a.m., Patricia electronically filed the divorce petition with the court. At 9:30 a.m., a process server arrived at Richard's architecture firm and served him with the divorce papers in front of his receptionist and 2 junior architects. At 9:45 a.m., Richard called me. I was still in Patricia's office. I let it go to voicemail. He called again. And again. By the fifth call, Patricia nodded at me. Answer it. Put it on speaker. I accepted the call. Hello. Catherine, what the fuck is going on? His voice was shaking. Rage and panic mixed together. I just got served with divorce papers. At work. In front of my entire staff. Yes, I said calmly. I know. You know? What the hell are you talking about? This is insane. Is this some kind of joke? It's not a joke, Richard. Then what, Catherine? I don't understand. We were fine yesterday. Emma's graduation, the dinner, everything was fine. And now you're filing for divorce. Patricia gestured at me. Keep him talking. We weren't fine, I said. We haven't been fine for a long time. But I guess you already knew that. What are you talking about? His voice changed, became careful. If this is about me working too much, if you're feeling neglected, we can work on that. We can go to counseling. But divorce? Catherine, this is crazy. Is it? I kept my voice even. Tell me about the property in Florida, Richard. Silence. Complete, utter silence. Tell me about Melissa, I continued. Tell me about the offshore account in the Cayman Islands. Tell me about the $62,000 you stole from our joint accounts over the last 6 years. Tell me about forging my signature to take out a home equity loan on our house. More silence. I could hear him breathing fast and shallow. How long have you known? He finally asked, his voice barely a whisper. 3 weeks. Since the day I overheard you in the boutique, telling someone that the loan was approved and I still didn't know. Jesus Christ. A pause. Catherine, listen to me. I can explain. I don't want your explanations. I want a divorce. And I want every penny you stole from me returned, plus half of everything else, including the money you've been hiding offshore. You can't prove. I can prove all of it. I have a forensic accountant's report. I have copies of your emails with Melissa. I have photos of the property documents, the forged signatures, everything. Your lawyer should have the evidence by now. It was included with the petition. Another long silence. Then, you fucking bitch. And there it was. The mask finally off. You had no right, he hissed. No right to go through my things, to spy on me, to air our private business to lawyers and accountants and God knows who else. I had every right, I said, my voice rising for the first time. You stole from me. You lied to me for years. You were planning to abandon me and Emma. You forged my signature on legal documents. So don't you dare talk to me about rights. Emma, he said suddenly. Does Emma know? Not yet. But she will. Catherine, please. His voice cracked. Don't tell Emma. Not like this. Let me explain to her, let me. You had 23 years to be honest with your daughter. With me. You chose to lie instead. So no, you don't get to control how this information comes out. I'm still her father. Yes. And that's the only reason I waited until after her graduation to file. I gave her that day. But you? You were going to wait 6 more weeks until she was settled at college, and then drop the bomb that you were leaving. You were going to let her start her adult life with the trauma of her family exploding. Don't talk to me about being a father. I could hear him crying now, harsh, angry sobs. Part of me felt satisfaction. Part of me felt nothing at all. The house, he finally said. That's my house. I bought it, Wrong. It's our house. Marital property. Purchased during the marriage. And you tried to use it as collateral without my consent, which, by the way, the judge blocked. That loan isn't going through. What? Did you really think I'd just sit back and let you steal our home too? I filed an emergency motion 3 weeks ago. The loan's dead, Richard. You can't do this. His voice was panicking now, wild. My lawyer, I'll fight this. I'll prove you're unfit, unstable. You'll do nothing, I interrupted. Because your lawyer is going to look at the evidence and tell you that you should settle quickly and quietly before I press criminal charges for fraud and forgery. That's what Patricia says will happen anyway. And she's been doing this for 17 years, so I trust her judgment. Patricia gave me a thumbs up from across the table. I need to come home, Richard said. We need to talk about this face to face. No. As of this morning, I changed the locks on the house. There's a restraining order being filed as we speak. You're not allowed within 500 feet of me or the property. Your clothes and personal items are being packed up by a service Patricia arranged. They'll be delivered to wherever you want them. This is my house. Was your house. Now it's the subject of litigation in a divorce proceeding. You should probably find somewhere else to stay. Maybe Melissa has room. I heard something crash in the background. He'd thrown his phone, maybe, or hit his desk. I'll destroy you, he said when he came back on the line. I'll drag you through court for years. I'll make sure you don't see a penny. I'll turn Emma against you. No, you won't. Because if you try any of that, I'll release every email, every photo, every piece of evidence to everyone. Your clients, your business partners, your family. Everyone will know exactly what kind of man you are. Is that really what you want? Silence again. I called his bluff and he knew it. My lawyer will be in touch with your lawyer, I said. Don't call me again. Don't come to the house. Don't contact Emma until I tell you she's ready to hear from you. Are we clear? Catherine. I hung up. My hands were shaking. I set the phone down on Patricia's desk and looked at her. How did I do? She was grinning. That was beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. You should have been a lawyer. I laughed and it came out sounding slightly hysterical. Is that it? Is it over? The filing part is over. Now we negotiate. But Catherine, you did the hard part. You stood up for yourself. That's what matters. I left Patricia's office an hour later with a folder full of documents and a court date for the preliminary hearing in 2 weeks. I drove home slowly, my mind spinning. When I pulled into the driveway, I saw Emma's car. She was home. Of course she was. Saturday morning, nowhere else to be. I'd have to tell her. Today. Now. I found her in the kitchen making coffee, still in her pajamas. Hey Mom. Where were you? I knocked on your door this morning but... She stopped, really looking at me. What's wrong? You look. Sit down, sweetheart, I said. We need to talk. Telling Emma was the hardest thing I've ever done. She sat at the kitchen table, coffee forgotten as I explained everything. I tried to keep it factual, tried not to let my anger bleed through. But some things couldn't be softened. When I told her about Melissa, she went pale. When I told her about the money, she started shaking. When I told her that her father had been planning to leave right after she went to college, she started crying. All of it, she whispered. Everything was a lie? Not everything, I said, kneeling beside her chair. He loved you. He loves you. That part was real. How do you know? She was sobbing now. How do you know anything was real? I didn't have an answer for that. So I just held her while she cried. The same way I'd held her through scraped knees and friendship drama and heartbreaks over the years. But this heartbreak I couldn't fix. When she finally calmed down enough to speak, she asked, Does he know I know? Not yet. But he will. I told him I was going to tell you. I don't want to see him. You don't have to. Not until you're ready. She pulled away from me, wiped her eyes. College. Oh God, Mom, college. He was supposed to help pay for. He will, I said firmly. That's part of the divorce settlement. He doesn't get to abandon his financial obligations to you. Patricia is making sure of that. Who's Patricia? My lawyer. Emma looked at me, really looked at me, and I saw her seeing me differently. Not just as Mom, the constant presence in the background of her life, but as a person. Someone who'd been hurt and who'd fought back. You planned all this, she said slowly. The timing. You waited until after graduation. I wanted you to have that day. You deserved it. You sat through my graduation knowing all of this. You smiled in photos with him, went to dinner, pretended everything was fine. Yes. How? Because I'm your mother, I said simply. And you come first. She started crying again, but this time she reached for me, pulled me close. I'm sorry, she whispered. I'm so sorry, Mom. You have nothing to be sorry for. I didn't know. All those times he missed things, all those times you covered for him, I thought it was just work. I thought. Shoo. You were a child. It wasn't your job to know. We sat there on the kitchen floor, holding each other, until the coffee pot beeped that it was done brewing. The sound of normal life intruding on catastrophe. Emma's phone buzzed. Then again. And again. She looked at the screen. It's Dad. He's calling me. You don't have to answer. She stared at the phone, watching it ring. Then she turned it off. I'm not ready, she said. Maybe tomorrow. Maybe next week. But not today. Okay. Will you tell him? That I'm not ready. Of course. She stood up, helped me to my feet. I think I'm going to go to Jenna's for a while. Is that okay? I need to be around someone normal for a bit. That's fine. Take your time. After she left, I sat alone in the quiet house. The house Richard and I had made a home. The house he'd tried to steal from me. My phone rang. Richard again. I sent it to voicemail. He called 6 more times that day. Each time I declined. He left voicemails, angry ones, pleading ones where he tried to explain. I deleted them all without listening past the first few seconds. That night Emma came home late. She didn't say where she'd been and I didn't ask. She just hugged me, whispered, I love you, Mom, and went upstairs. I slept in my bed alone for the first time in over 2 decades. Felt strange and vast and somehow exactly right. The next few months were a blur of legal proceedings, mediation sessions, and negotiations. Richard tried to fight at first. His lawyer, a shark named Douglas Pemberton, filed countermotions, disputed the asset division, argued that the forensic accountant's report was inadmissible. But Patricia had built an airtight case. Every piece of evidence was documented, verified, ironclad. When the judge saw the forged signatures, when she reviewed the emails about hiding assets, when she heard about the offshore accounts, her face turned to stone. Mr. Harrison, she said during one hearing, I've been on the bench for 12 years, and this is one of the most egregious cases of marital financial fraud I've encountered. I strongly suggest you instruct your client to settle, Mr. Pemberton, before I decide to refer this matter to the district attorney's office. After that, Richard's resistance crumbled. The final settlement took 4 months to negotiate. When it was done, this is what I got. The house, full ownership, with Richard's name removed from the deed. $75,000. Reimbursement for the money he'd stolen from our joint accounts, plus interest. $150,000. Half of what was in the offshore account plus half of his other hidden assets. Full college tuition for Emma, paid from his accounts, with legal penalties if he missed a payment. Half of his retirement fund and half of the value of his architecture firm. Spousal support $3,000 a month for the next 10 years. In total, with assets and cash, I received around $650,000. More than enough to be secure, to rebuild, to start over. Richard, meanwhile, lost everything. The Florida property deal fell through. He couldn't get financing without the home equity loan. And Melissa apparently wasn't interested in a man who was suddenly half as wealthy as she'd thought. According to mutual friends, she left him 2 weeks after the divorce was filed. His architecture firm took a hit too. Word got out about the divorce, about the fraud. Some clients stayed, but several high-profile ones jumped ship. He had to downsize, let people go. And Emma? She refused to speak to him for 3 months. When she finally agreed to meet him for coffee, it was brief and painful. She came home and told me, he apologized. Said he never meant to hurt me. But Mom, he did hurt me. He hurt both of us. And I don't know if I can forgive that. You don't have to forgive him, I told her. Not now, not ever. Whatever relationship you have with your father going forward, that's your choice. She nodded and I saw her relief. Permission to feel what she felt, without pressure to forgive or forget. Emma went to college that fall. She video called me 3 times a week at first, gradually settling into twice a week as she got comfortable with her new life. She joined the debate team, declared a major in political science, talked about law school. She was thriving. As for me, I went back to teaching that fall with a new sense of purpose. I wasn't just going through the motions anymore. I was present, engaged, alive in a way I hadn't been in years. I also started going to therapy, not because I was broken, but because I wanted to understand how I'd allowed myself to become so small, so accommodating, so willing to accept scraps of attention and call it love. Dr. Reynolds, my therapist, helped me see that I hadn't been weak. I'd been conditioned by society, by expectation, by my own beliefs about what it meant to be a good wife and mother, to sacrifice myself without question. The question now, she said during one session, is who do you want to be going forward? Not as a wife, not as a mother, though you're still those things, but as Catherine. Just Catherine. I thought about that for a long time. I started small. I joined a book club at the local library. Not to meet men, just to have something that was mine. I took up painting, something I'd loved in college but abandoned somewhere along the way. I traveled, weekend trips at first, then a 2-week trip to Italy over spring break, something I'd always wanted to do. I made space for myself in my own life. Friends rallied around me. Janice took me to wine bars and art exhibits. My sister flew out twice just to sit with me and remind me I wasn't alone. My neighbors, people who'd watched me hold our household together for years, brought casseroles and flowers and offers to help with anything I needed. I learned something important. I'd thought I was alone in my marriage, but I hadn't been alone in my life. Love had been there all along, just not in the place I'd been looking for it. A year after the divorce was finalized, I ran into Richard at the grocery store. It was awkward. We both froze in the produce section, each holding a bag of apples. "Catherine," he said. "Hi." "Richard." He looked older. Tired. There were lines around his eyes I didn't remember seeing before. "How are you?" he asked. "Good. Really good, actually." He nodded. That's good. You look good." "Thanks." An uncomfortable pause. Then, "How's Emma?" "She's great. Dean's List last semester. She's thinking about law school." Pride flickered across his face, mixed with sadness. "She still won't see me much. Once every few months, maybe." "She's working through things," I said, not unkindly. "It takes time." "Yeah." He shifted his grocery basket from one hand to the other. "Catherine, I want you to know I'm sorry. For all of it. I was selfish and stupid, and I destroyed our family. I don't expect you to forgive me. But I am sorry." I looked at this man I'd spent half my life with. This man who'd betrayed me in every way possible. And I felt nothing. No anger, no hurt, no love. Just a distant sort of pity. "I appreciate that," I said. "I hope you figure things out." And then I walked away. Not dramatically, not angrily. I just walked away, finished my shopping, went home to my house, and made myself dinner. That night I sat on my back patio with a glass of wine, looking at the stars, and I realized something. I was happy. Actually genuinely happy. Not performing happiness, not pretending, not filling the gaps. Just happy. I'd lost a marriage, but I'd found myself. It's been 3 years now since that day in the changing room. 3 years since I overheard the words that shattered my world and, in shattering it, set me free. People ask me sometimes if I regret how I handled it. If I wish I'd confronted Richard sooner, or differently, or not at all. And the answer is no. I don't regret any of it. I planned carefully. I protected myself and my daughter. I took back my power, my money, my home, my life. And I did it on my own terms, not his. Emma's doing wonderfully. She graduated college last spring, got accepted to 3 law schools, chose one on the East Coast. She and Richard have rebuilt a relationship of sorts, cordial, careful, nothing like what it was, but something. She's made her peace with it in her own way. As for me, I'm still teaching, still painting, still traveling when I can. I've dated a little, nothing serious yet, but I'm open to it. And for the first time in my adult life, I'm okay with being alone. Because alone doesn't mean lonely. I think about the woman I was 3 years ago, standing in that changing room, hearing her world collapse. I wish I could go back and tell her, "This is going to hurt. It's going to be the hardest thing you've ever done." But on the other side of this pain is a life you can't even imagine yet. A life where you're enough just as you are. Where you don't have to shrink yourself to fit into someone else's vision. Where you can take up space and make noise and demand what you deserve. I wish I could tell her, "You're stronger than you know." But maybe she already knew. Maybe that's why she started taking pictures of evidence instead of falling apart. Maybe that's why she planned and waited and fought. Maybe she knew all along what she was capable of. So here's my question for you. What would you have done if you were in my place? If you overheard your partner plotting behind your back, stealing from you, planning to leave you? Would you have confronted them immediately? Would you have planned and strategized like I did? Or would you have chosen a different path entirely? Tell me in the comments. I really want to know. Because everyone's situation is different, and there's no one right way to handle betrayal. But I believe we all deserve to stand up for ourselves. We all deserve to fight for what's ours. If my story resonated with you, if it made you think about your own relationships or your own worth, please like this video. Share it with someone who might need to hear it. Subscribe for more true stories about resilience, justice, and finding yourself when life falls apart. And remember, you are not what someone else did to you. You are what you choose to become in spite of it. Thank you for staying with me through this journey. Thank you for listening to my story. I see you. I hear you. And if you're going through something similar right now, please know you're stronger than you think. And you deserve better. Take care of yourselves.